properties available for sale on the MLS. The MLS is a database like Zillow, but unlike Zillow, it is maintained by local real estate agents and it is current for that market. When you are shopping for an investment property, I urge you to contact a local real estate agent and get access somehow to their MLS. Okay, so the access that Watson provides looks very similar to this. Okay, so every property that appears here that is active, I know is currently available for sale. Okay, which is not the same as looking at Zillow and seeing on market or off market, because things move on and off market pretty quickly. And Zillow can't keep up because Zillow is trying to keep up with the entire nation. And it's just not practical. So Zillow is trying to check every single county in the entire United States, whereas an MLS listing is maintained by agents in that area. They only have one database to update. It is instantaneous change. So you want access to the MLS. Otherwise, you're going to be spending your time analyzing things that don't matter. So the question that we're going to ask and answer today is, how do I take these 14 available listings and narrow them down to 3 or 4? I would recommend 3 that I want to put an offer on. Okay, with real estate investment properties, these decisions will be made before you ever set foot in the property. Once we have those 3, we'll talk about how to make an offer on those in a way that we can see the property without putting down any cash. And then we'll talk about the process that follows after that. Okay, so again, today's goal is to narrow these 14 properties down to just 3. Now, the number of properties that will be available at any given time will depend upon the market. I can tell you that 3 months ago, this number for a similar search was closer to 52. There were 52 properties available at the beginning of the summer. Over the summer, a lot of those properties disappear. We're entering the winter months now, so we've got 14 available. We're going to narrow this list down. Now, I use an Excel spreadsheet in order to do this. Together, you and I are going to make the Excel spreadsheet that I use. This spreadsheet will then be available on the website, jared@watson.com, for you to download and use. So if you are watching this video on the blog there, it'll be on the same page. Okay? If you're not watching this video on that blog, you'll have some searching to do. But you'll find it. Keep at it. There's lots of good information there. First thing I want to do on the spreadsheet is add several tabs. Okay? We're going to put data, let's see here, universal data, property data, results. Okay, this is going to be information on the universal data page that is true for everything. Okay, like the amount of cash that I have available to put on a down payment, pay for closing costs, or anything like that. Okay, that's going to be the same no matter which property we're looking at. Also, things that are going to be the same: the rate for a 30-year mortgage. Okay, right now for an investment property, it's somewhere between 5 and 5.5. I always recommend using conservative numbers. So use numbers that will make your profit less in the analysis, and that way you're happily surprised at the end. Rates for 15-year mortgage. I generally don't recommend a 15-year mortgage unless you have a large cash down payment. If you have a large cash down payment, 15-year mortgages are amazing because you can usually get a 15-year mortgage for about 0.5% less than the 30-year mortgage. So now what I'm doing here, I put in an equal sign. I clicked on this cell and that put in B2. That's the reference for the cell B2. And then I can subtract from that 0.5%. Excel will convert this 0.5% into a decimal number and then convert it back into a percentage. So now I've got that there. So if I change this to 6%, that changes there for me. Okay, so we will use a couple of formulas as we go through here, and that's how they work. I'll try to explain each new formula as we get to it, and then we'll just kind of roll through. So the amount of cash I have available, let's say it's $60,000. turn that into a dollar amount. All right, what are some other things that are going to be the same? Number of months reserve. Okay, we're going to decline that phone call for the time being because we're in the middle of a video here. All right, number months reserve. You should have 6 months reserve. We'll talk about that in a minute. Annual maintenance budget. The annual maintenance budget for properties across the United States is 2.5%. What that means is if you have a house that is $100,000, you're going to spend about $2,500 every year to maintain that property in its current condition. If you're spending less than that, which you will find a lot of these houses are spending less than that, the house will steadily decline in value because the amount of money you're putting into it to maintain its condition is not being reflected in the materials. So things are starting to wear down, but they're not getting replaced. All right, so you want to actively replace things as they wear down at a slow and steady pace. 2.5% is the best average that I have found across the US. For the first several years, however, because you're usually buying a property that somebody else has maintained, and because they have usually maintained it at less than what I consider a decent standard, for the first several years, I put the maintenance budget at 5%. Okay, so we're going to steadily improve the property year after year until it's no longer a slum. This will also give us the ability to buy in areas that are a little bit riskier, because we're going to be consciously improving that area, but at a pace that we can handle. Let's see here. So annual maintenance budget is there. Let's put here. Let's put here a. Let's not do that. Okay. So we can always add more stuff here later. Let's go to property data. Among the property data, we want property identifier. Okay. I want to know the price. Okay, these are things that are going to change property by property. Okay, number of units. Okay, then we're going to put here rents. Rent number 1, rent number 2, rent number 3, rent number 4. And then we're going to put actual number 1. Actually, what we're going to do here, insert actual. Okay. And let's see here, area score. Okay. This we're going to fill in a little bit later. Okay, let's take a look here and fill in some example data. Okay, so from this screen, again, this screen is the one specific to Watson. We're going to click Details. Okay. The property identifier here is 321 Belmont Ave, 215000. Number of units. Scroll down here. You got 1 story, built in 1958. Number of refrigerators, 2 stoves, so I'm guessing there's 2 units. Cap rate is 11%. Price per total number of units is 2. All right, so is this actual? So here on income expense info, we see actual. Later we're going to see pro forma. So I'm going to put down true here. Rental 1. What this means is that the numbers down below are actually what they're collecting. They can document that. So it looks like unit 2 might be vacant. Okay. And you know what we're going to do then? Delete that. Insert. We're going to insert 3 more. actual number 1, actual number 2, actual number 3, actual number 4. Okay, so because unit 2 is empty, we'll want to fill that with something else. So first question, are they the same number of bedrooms and baths? This one has 2 beds and 1 bath. This has 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. So no, they are not. Okay, so we cannot use the same number here. What we're going to do is we're going to go to Zillow. Zillow does have advantages in the rental market. So this is true, false. Okay, let's go find out what unit 2 is going to bring in. So the address was Belmont Ave, Bakersfield. Okay, so I'm going to back out of that. Let's see here. Map. Okay, so this is kind of centered on Belmont Ave is right in here. So let's filter this. I don't want to know about stuff for sale. I don't want to know about potential listings. I do want to know what's available for rent. Okay. I would like to change this to, let's get rid of houses. Let's look at condos, townhomes, and apartments. And I want to use an exact match. It was 3 bedrooms, and let's use 2+ baths. Okay. You can filter in other things for comparison. So if you know for a fact that the property has AC, you can select AC. We're going to look in general at just all the properties that are available. So here are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties that are near our property at Belmont Ave. Okay, we've got one available for 1,000, 935 for 1,100, 1,200 for 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 1,300, 1,200. So looking at these, we're going to try to kind of get a good estimation here. And let's switch views here to Google Maps. I want to see where 321 Belmont Ave is. Okay, no thanks. Close this out. All right, so here's Airport Road. There's Roberts Lane. Let's go back here. Here's Airport. Here's Roberts. So our property is right here. Here's Belmont. Okay, so we're much closer to these properties than we are up here to these, right? I can also tell you from personal experience, there's a big difference in properties once you cross Norris Road. So I'm going to, even though unit 2 is only 3 bedroom, 2 bath, I'm only going to use $1,000 as an estimated value there. Now let's put a dividing line here by filling that in with black. I'm going to show you what we're going to do here. So rent number 1, rent number 2, rent number 3, rent number 4. All right, so this is the information on the left side is information that we have put in from the listing or put in manually. Okay, like this is a number I just added. It didn't come from the listing. This is information that we're going to use in our analysis. So we're going to use an if function. Here's how this works. Equal if, right? Now Excel will show you there's 3 parts. There's a logical test, a value that displays if the test is true, and a value that displays if the test is false. So for example, let's say if 1 equals 1. That's a logical test. The result of that test is true. So I will expect whatever I put into this next space after the comma is going to appear in the cell. Let's put the number 5. And the value of false, let's put a 0. Okay, so I'm expecting when I hit enter to see the number 5. There it is. Let's change this statement to something that's not true. 2. I expect now to see 0. Where this becomes useful is when we start filling in data, like if actual 1 is equal to true. Okay, 1 is true, so this is 5. If I change this to false, it changes to 0. Magic! True. Okay. But I don't want this number to be 5. What I want this to be, if we're using actual numbers, I want the value to be, I want the value just to be the number that appears in the cell. If it's not true, I want it to be that value, but I want it to be 10% less than that value. So we're going to multiply this by 90%. 100% minus 10% is 90%. This gives us a conservative estimate of rents. So we think we can get $1,000 a month for rent on unit 2, but we're going to use 900 to calculate that. And that I did that pretty quickly. What happens if you grab this little box, when you select something and grab the little box and drag, it copies the contents into the next cell. In the case of a formula, it actually moves the entire formula, and unless you tell it otherwise, the boxes move with it. So here, the box is on 1 and 1. I drag that to the right 1 square, and the boxes move to the right 1 square. Okay, so total rent, I'm going to type equals SUM. The SUM function will add together all of the values that I include inside of it. It's just a quick way of getting a sum. So we're going to select one cell and we're going to drag over. And you notice how it's all in one box, and it links them together with this colon here. We'll hit enter, and so the total rent is $1,900. Let's change this to dollars. Okay. And then total annual rent will equal to this cell times 12. So this estimation says total annual rent is $22,800. What do they give us here? $25,476. The good news is we're getting close numbers. Okay, let's also include here taxes. All right, so insert a cell here. We're going to put taxes. Okay, so taxes, assessment year, total assessment. Okay, so we don't actually have the amount that they're paying. Total annual expense. Oh, here we go. $1,546. All right, this number will go up when you buy the property, because when you buy the property, it will be reassessed at the current value. That's how things work in California. Taxes are reassessed every time the property sells. So this tax at $1,546 is based on the price the property sold at last time, which is less than $215,000. We'll use this number just for the purpose of our analysis. Okay, so let's move on to another property. Let's go next. All right, so this one here, 317 Belmont Avenue. Notice it's the same area, 185,000. These properties are actually next to each other. This one is remarkably less in price. And the cap rate on this one is 8%, which scares me, considering the fact that this is so much less than the other one. Gross rent multiplier, total annual expense, total number of units is 2. So I'm expecting these to be very small units. We're using actual income and expense information. Gross income annually is $1,680. All right, we got $1,400 a month coming in on unit 1. Oh, that's unit 2, $1,400. So this is actual data. We don't have any actual data for 1. We could use their statement about the annual income, but instead let's do a better analysis by actually taking a look here. What we don't know here is what the other unit looks like. On the previous property, we had a 3-bedroom, 2-bath to search for on Zillow. But what are you going to search for now? We don't know how many bedrooms or bathrooms there are in this second unit. What we're going to do in this case is we're going to make the assumption that the second unit is the same as the first unit. In doing this, we can assume the rent is going to be the same also between the two. It is an assumption. We are going to subtract out 10% of the gross rents in order to adjust and make our assumption a little bit safer, leave room for error. But these are kind of the things that we have to do here to just make sure that the numbers work out. Taxes. No taxes listed, right? So if the tax isn't listed, let's base it on 1% of the sale price, which is probably more accurate than this. Okay. Now, you remember we did that handy dandy click and drag? We're going to do the same thing here. Click, drag. Okay. Don't be scared by this number sign. This just means that there's too many numbers here for the cell to display. You can change that by stretching this out. Handy tip, if you double click on the border, it will make the cell exactly the size it needs to be. Okay. So this property is showing some weird information, right? So according to this, our total annual expense is $31,920. Our annual gross income here is $16,800 though, which is half of this. What I imagine this means is that somebody was living in the one unit. Because if let's say that we put down 0 for rent in unit 1, 0. Look at that. So they've listed this as a duplex, but they've only been collecting rent on one unit. That's where that 16.8 comes from. What this means for us as an investor is that there is a huge room for profit here, okay, for the cap, because we're going to be looking at cap rates and we're going to be looking at returns on investment. Right now, I could buy this property for $180,000 and get $31,920 in return, estimated. This one here, I could buy for $280,000 and only get $22,800. Okay. So which one do you think I'm going to buy if it's me? This one right here, right? Look at that, $185,000 gets me $32,000 a year, right? Okay, let's move on to the next property, and then we'll start moving forward. All right. So let's see here. This one's a range of addresses: 5707 Castlegate Lane. I'm just curious where this is. Let's go over here to Google again. Let's expand the side panel. Castlegate Lane, Bakersfield. Okay. So we got Norris Road here. Norris Road in Oildale is a dividing line between nicer properties and less nice properties. Also, 99 is a huge dividing line. So the fact that this is on this side of that dividing line, this is huge for me. This is a much nicer area. All right. This area here, south of Norris, is less nice. There's a lot of crud in this area. This area is medium nice. And then this area here on the other side of 99 tends to be a lot nicer. All right. So, report a problem, Castlegate. Let's go back to the client portal. It was built in 2003, so it's relatively new. Pro forma, income. This is the first one we've seen that is not actual data. Pro forma means that it was created, all the numbers on this listing were created in the same way that we're creating our analysis, by using estimations. The numbers that will appear on this listing, unlike the actual listings, are fake. They were based on a real estate agent's or the seller's estimation of what's true. In order to protect ourselves, we're going to take those fake numbers and we're going to reduce them by 10% in order to give ourselves that margin of error. That way, if we find a property that we like based on pro forma numbers as opposed to actual numbers, we have much better results in the end. All right, so the price of the property was $360,000. Number of units is 2. Rent. Now what's interesting to me, this is pro forma data. They have 2 units on each property, and I only see rent for 1. If you're using fake data, why not fill in the rent for the second one? That just doesn't make sense. We're also missing information about the number of bedrooms and bathrooms. So this is a risk that I'm going to be aware of. Let's make the assumption that unit number 2 is the same as unit number 1. So both are 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1175, 1175, false, false. Taxes. Do I see any taxes? I don't. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make this 1% of this price here. Okay. And let's go over here and drag this down. Okay, so I'm just curious. Let's put in a cap rate. The cap rate is the amount of gross income, excluding the expenses, that the property will generate each year based on its market value. When you're buying a property, the market value is the price that you actually pay to acquire the property. That market value can go up and down, but it's really only when it transitions from one person to another that we know what it is. Every other time it's an estimation. So let's figure out what that is. So our total annual income is here. So I'm going to hit equals. I'm going to put 22,000 divided by, and let's scroll to the left and the property value. So T2 divided by B2. And we'll turn this into a percentage. So this is an 11% cap rate. Here we have a 17% cap rate, and this is a 7% cap rate. Even though this property is in a much nicer area, the return is much less. This makes this a lot less attractive to me. One of the things that is nice about a nice area is it's usually easier to rent. However, once you get a good tenant, they tend to stay if you take care of them. So if you take care of your tenants, you don't necessarily need to be in the greatest of areas. Right now, these top 2 properties are much more attractive to me based on these cap rates. Personally, I like to buy in the 10%, 11% range. 17% usually indicates there's a lot of room for repairs. In this case, we know that the issue here was the fact that the person was living in the one unit and renting out the other. So that could just be a failure on the part of the agent, or there's a reason why the agent decided not to include that rent. Maybe the second unit is completely unrentable. That we won't know until we get into the property. All right, so we've got 3 properties here. Ultimately, I would go through all 14 properties and do this on every single one. Okay, I do want to include at least one property that has 3 units. This is a zoning of R2, so that's not going to have 3 units. In Bakersfield, in Kern County, the residence number, the zone, so R1 is single family. R2, usually you can fit 2 houses on. R3, usually you can fit 3. It is a mistake to think that the 3 indicates the number of families, but as a rule of thumb, it tends to be true. You can actually put 4 residences on an R3 property if the property is big enough. Similarly, in an R2, you can get 3 on it if the property is big enough. But in general, the property is sized so that the number in the zone matches the number of units that'll fit on the lot. So number of units is 2. Okay. Number of units, 3. Here we go. Let's add this one to our sheet. 511 Lincoln Street. 189,000. Number of units is 3. We have pro forma numbers, so all these numbers are false. I do have 1, 2, and 3 here, so at the very least I know what to look for. So rent on 1 is 950, rent on 2 is 600. The rent on 3, now notice that 3 and 2 are the same. We got 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, and 1 bedroom, 1 bath on 2, 1 bedroom, 1 bath on 3, but no rent. Chances are I'm just going to copy this number, the 600, because they're telling me that this is already reasonable. But since we already have the search available, let's take a look at what local rents are going for 1 bedroom, 1 bath. So let's find on Google where that is. We got Tulare Street, we got Jefferson Street, Bernard Street. Let's see here. That says 05. Was this 05? This says 08. Make sure that you're looking in the right area. All right. So it looks like there's another mistake in the listing, because this listing said, it says Lincoln Street, but it's not Lincoln Street. It's Lincoln Avenue. I know that because of this zip code. It's more likely to be in that zip code. Just even looking at the property, I can tell you that. The cross street is Oildale Drive. Further evidence here, here's Oildale Drive, that it's Lincoln Avenue, okay? The general lesson here, real estate agents tend to make mistakes. It's not always their fault. Sometimes they're working with others, sometimes they're busy. Well, I guess even if they're busy, it's still their fault. But it's up to you as a buyer to be diligent. So this is one of the reasons why I work in 3 different systems on 3 different tabs and kind of double check everything. Some mistakes will be hard to catch. This one would have been hard to catch until you saw that cross street. This is something that I was able to identify just because I know these neighborhoods very well. Okay. I am a popular guy this morning, getting lots of phone calls. I hope they're going to my voicemail. All right. So let's start filling in some data here. So we wanted to find out rents. So Oildale and Decatur. All right, so there's 99, there's Decatur, there's Oildale, and we are on the top left corner here, right? Here's Oildale, Decatur. So this property is right there. Let's change this. We've already got it filtered for, we already have it filtered for, oh, look at that. That's fun. We already have it filtered for rentals. Okay, so the purple stuff is for rent. We're now looking for apartments, condos for 1 bedroom, 1 bath. This here is where we're at, and we're seeing 550, 595, 525, 625, 595. 595, 595, 550, 625. Chances are pretty good we'll be able to get 600 for this property. But it looks like the average market here is 595. Let's just list it at 595. It's a $5 difference, but let's be safe. So we're going to use false, false, false. This is all pro forma numbers. Taxes. Taxes are not listed. So I'm going to use 1% of the sale price. Oops. Times sale price. There we go. And let's copy this down. Okay, that's a great cap rate for me, particularly in this area. I know that there's going to be some repairs necessary, but even with the reductions, we see a huge return. All right, so let's go over here to the results. We're going to have the property ID. want the cap rate. I want to know the 30-year mortgage payment. I want monthly taxes. I want, insert, 15-year mortgage payment. Okay. So property ID is going to equal the value in this cell. I'm going to use everything on row 2 for this first column. Okay, cap rate. I normally would put cap rate on this results tab and not on the property data tab, but I was curious. I used cap rate as a base gauge of which properties are going to be the most interesting to me. So the cap rate I tend to put on that page just because I want to know. I'm curious and I don't want to wait. That's impatience for you. All right, so the cap rate is going to equal to, let's recalculate it. So we're going to base it off of annual rent divided by property price. Notice that the numbers look a lot different. Before it was T2 divided by B2. Now it's this weird other bit. This tells Excel that it needs to switch to the property data tab before grabbing cell T2. And you really don't have to worry about it because all you're doing is changing the tab and clicking. Excel will take care of the rest for you. I want that to be a percentage. Okay, let's put in the property price here too because I want the price. I want this all in the same area. Property data, price. Okay. So universal data, let's put down payment 25%. Let's also put reserve for repairs. Let's reserve 10% of the property price for repairs. So insert, insert, insert. Reserve for repair. This is going to equal to, I'm going to do something weird here. I'm going to put a $sign in front of the B and a $sign in front of the 7. As I copy this cell, those $signs are going to keep the cell focused on this. It says the B is very important, don't change it. And this says the 7 is very important, don't change it. I'm going to multiply that by, let's go back to the results page, the price. Oops. Oh, it's recording as a percent. There we go, dollars. 10% was probably a little steep. Let's change that to 5%. That's probably a little bit better. Reserves for repair. Let's put immediate repair. Closing costs. Let's estimate closing costs at 5% of the price. Let's make that $sign. Actually, you know what? Closing cost percentage. Let's change this so that way we can change the value later. Delete that. Universal data. And remember on the universal data tab, I want to put the $sign and the $sign. That way that value doesn't change. Cash available. This is going to equal to my total cash minus this minus this. Okay, down payment let's assume we're going to spend the rest of this cash on the property. So the percentage here is 18%. So with the amount of cash that I put down as my available cash, I'm only able to come up with 18% for this first property. In order to successfully close, I need at least 20%. Now, I can adjust the numbers a little bit by reducing the amount that I've reserved for immediate repairs and reducing the closing costs. Closing costs, you don't want to flex too much because those are determined by someone else. You get to decide how much you're going to put into immediate repairs. So that's a decision that you get to make. I think 5% is already pretty low. So we're going to kind of just leave that alone. Down payment 18%, 30-year mortgage payments. Okay, so this here, we're going to introduce you to a new function. This is the payment function, PMT. All right. And here you see it calculates the payment for a loan based on the constant payments and consistent interest rates. Basically, it's a way to calculate the mortgage. So the rate we set on the first page for a 30-year mortgage, B2, right? Number of periods, this is 30 years. So let's actually put that here. And we're going to multiply that by 12, right? So that's 30 years times 12 gives me the number. Each period is a month, right? So that would be giving the number of months necessary. Present value is going to be the price minus the down payment. Future value, we're not going to worry about that. When it's in brackets like that, you can... Now, this is going to be a negative number because it's set from the perspective of the bank. We have a... Oh, let's go back here and fill in this number here. So this is 30 years. This is 15. Results. There we go. I don't like negative numbers. Let's multiply this by -1. All right. 30-year mortgage payment. I know that's not right. What did I make a mistake on? My rate has to be divided by 12 because the rate is based on an annual percentage. So it was applying this 5% every month as opposed to every year. The 5.5%, it's really only going to be equals 5.5% divided by 12. They're only applying 0.4%. Boop, boop, boop. 0.46, 0.4583% is getting applied every month in order to get this annual 5.5%. All right, so results. So that's going to be my mortgage payment. Let's copy this over to the right. Okay. Now, we need to change this here and this here. So this is going to be B, and this is going to be F. And actually, I don't want to lock the row. I do want to lock the column. That was the problem. So B is very important. The F is very important. I don't want to change those columns. But as I copy down, I do want to change the row number. So I'm not going to put the $sign on the 2. Okay. Divided by 12. Universal data D2 times 12. This is wrong. Let's delete that. Let's go back over to universal data. I want to use B3 divided by 12. I want to lock those in. All right, and again, we've got here a crazy number. B2 divided by 12. The rate is going to be B3 divided by 12. And I know that that is not correct. Results B2. Present value B2 minus F2. B2 minus F2. Universal data. The worst case scenario, we'll just do this again. B3, oops. Universal data, B3. Oh, here we go. This is all foobar. B3, lock. Okay, so that's the number of periods. Oh, that's the problem. C3, it's number of periods. There we go. Okay, so if I raise the payment by $300 and I reduce the rate by 0.5%, I'm able to pay this off in 15 years instead of 30. When it comes terms to retiring and saving a lot of money, that is the way to go. So if we can afford to do a 15-year mortgage, let's do it. If we can't, well, monthly taxes. We're going to go back to the property data. We're going to grab the taxes. Those are annual taxes. And we're going to divide those by 12. Okay. Let's do insurance. Let's estimate that at $40 a month. We're going to do total monthly expense. All right. Remember, we were going to estimate our maintenance. Let's see here. Maintenance is going to be 5% or something of that of the purchase price. So let's take the purchase price. We're going to multiply that by closing costs, down payment, maintenance budget. Okay, and then we're going to divide that by 12. All right, so $895 a month for maintenance. Total monthly expense is equal to sum. Okay, so I guess this really depends upon, okay, total monthly expense, 30-year. This is going to equal to the sum of these items plus the 30-year mortgage. Lock that, lock that, lock that. Okay. So now I want total monthly, monthly expense 15-year. This is going to equal 2. So here, the only thing that we're changing this H2, delete that, to this. Okay. Okay. So, total annual expense, $30-year, total annual expense 15-year equal to monthly times 12. Total annual cash flow 30-year, total annual cash flow 15-year. So this is going to equal to our annual income, which again has been reduced to be conservative, annual rent, minus our annual expense. All right, so this one runs at a loss. oops, property data. We don't want that to change. And we don't want that to change. But we do want this to be different than P2. We want it to be O2. There we go. All right. So every year we would lose about the same amount regardless. So given these two options, if this property was viable, I would choose the 15-year mortgage because I'm spending this $2,000 extra every year, and over 15 years, I get the property. But this is also the cash flow. We also have to look at equity, annual equity, average annual equity. After 15. All right, so this is going to equal to the loan price, which is this minus this. Okay. Let's lock those in. Divided by 30, right? So over 30 years, I'm going to get $5,000 per year to pay off that mortgage. And in the last year, it's going to be done. This is an average annual equity. Truth be told, you're going to get a lot more equity in the last couple of years and a lot less equity in the first couple of years. So this analysis is assuming a buy and hold position. Okay, we're going to do the same thing here. And this one here, I'm going to change this to 15. So you notice that you get a lot more equity. This is why I choose the 15 in this case. So return on investment, 30-year. Return on investment, 15-year. So our total cash in is here. Okay. And we're getting back this much every year for that's for the 15. We want here for the 30. Okay. Let's start getting rid of some of these columns so we can see what's going on. I don't care about the monthlies. That's there just to calculate. So we're going to highlight this, and we're going to hide those columns. They're still there, but they're now hidden. Okay. So you'll notice we'll go from G to Q. All those columns in between are still there. Cash available, cash closed, cash for reserve, cap rate. Let's hide this as well. Okay. So my biggest issue with this one here is I don't have enough cash available to make the 25% that I really want for this property. But the return on investment is 20%. That's pretty good. All right. Now, these here, we're going to delete because they don't exist. It looks like we have a problem with the formula here. So O2, T4 and O4, property results O4. Let's unhide that data, unhide. Let's find out where the problems are. So let's see here. You know what we're going to do? Let's insert finance amount. Let's subtract this from the amount of the down payment. Okay. So 30-year mortgage. This is now going to be here. We're going to lock That there. Here. We're going to get rid of this. And we're going to select that there. Okay, so the problem is not there. C5, C4. Ah. Okay. See how this is changing here? C2, C3, C4. I don't want this to change. That's, I've got to lock that in. I'm going to have to lock, that's already locked in over there. So there we go. That's much nicer. Maintenance budget. Average annual equity. Okay, so we're going to start, we're going to hide these. Okay, we're going to hide these. Let's hide price. I really like to see everything on one screen. So let's get rid of the finance amount. Let's get rid of the cash for close. Now I'm just hiding these. I'm not deleting them. They're still there. Okay. So right now, without any changes, if I had $60,000 available, this property and this property would be my best choices, because I have 22% available for down payment, including closing costs, including reserving a little bit of cash to make repairs. If I want to see how much I'm reserving, I can expand this. Total annual cash flow is positive on both of them, which is nice. I'm not coming out of pocket. And then my return on my investment is 16% for a 15-year mortgage and 8%. What's interesting to me here is the cash flow is the same here. That shouldn't be. Let's unhide these and find out what's going on there. I thought it was a coincidence at first. So my mortgages are different, right? But the income is the same. So total monthly expense, total monthly expense, total annual income, total cash flow. So here we're subtracting some wrong numbers somewhere. Total annual expense. Let's make things easy here. Let's add total annual income. Property data. I forgot to hit equals first. Equals property data. There. Okay. So total cash flow for 30-year is going to equal to my annual income minus my annual expense. This is going to equal to my annual income minus my annual expense. All right. Okay, there we go. So we're going to hide these again. The lesson here is, these spreadsheets are supposed to make the numbers easy. We want to hide stuff that we're not actually going to use in our analysis. I calculate things column by column in order to make the numbers more accurate, because there's less chance for mistake. And when there is a mistake, it's easier to identify where the mistake is. But ultimately I want to be able to see everything in a single screen. So let's change this to cash flow 30-year, and we'll just assume that it's total annual. Okay, so this is annual cash flow for 15-year, annual cash flow. So these two properties here lose me money every year. Over the course of the 15 to 30 years, I do get a return on my investment, but all that return is in equity. So I end up paying $2,000 a year for 30 years and owning a $215,000 property. That's not a bad deal. If I multiply this times 30, that means I've paid $60,000 total on top of my cash investment to have a $215,000 property. That's where that return on your investment's coming. All right. Now here the return on the investment is only 10% for 30 years. Over 15 is at 20%. These numbers, the return on investment, are going to be different investor by investor depending upon your down payment situation. The cap rates stay the same. So take a notice here. 11, 17, 7, 12, 20, 16, 37, 16. Let's go back to the universal data. Let's assume that I have 125,000 available for down payment. Notice that my cap rates stayed the same. My return on investment went down. The reason why the return on investment went down is because I'm now investing more cash. I'm using my own money. I'm getting the same amount of money in, but I'm using more of my own money. The return on investment is based upon the amount of cash you actually separate with, not the size of the house, not the gross annual income. And that's why return on investment is a very personal number that is specific to the investor. This is also why you see cap rates on listing agreements, because regardless of your personal situation, the cap rate's always going to be the same at that price in that market. So you can use a cap rate as an initial indication of where you are going to be. So the game then becomes, once you decide where you're at, you start playing with your down payment to see which property is really where you want to be and how much you want to put into it. So let's do that real quick so you see what I'm talking about. Now remember, I want this number to be around 25%. Right now, at the number that I'm at, I'm exactly where I need to be for this one. Okay? But I've got a lot of room to play here and here. If I wanted a 14% return on my money, I could certainly put down, I've got 125,000. I could come into this deal with 125,000 and I could expand this to find out what my down payment would be. It's going to be 25% of this price. The return I would get, 14%, is a really good return, especially when you consider that your average stock portfolio return is only like 7 to 9%. Your average bank return is 0.075%. You heard me correct. It's 0.075 if you have a savings account or a money market. Banks are not your friend. And this is why I find real estate to be a much better investment. Now, this property is not a property I would recommend because even though the return is high, I've got a negative cash flow. So this property, this Castlegate one, I'm ruling this one out. Right? Let's go play with the property data and see, the universal data. Let's see what happens if instead of 125,000, I just invest 90,000. Okay. Right now, all three of these are still above 25%. This one is not. I've got positive cash flow on the 30-year for all three properties. I've got positive cash flow on the 15-year for two properties. And here are my returns on investment. Okay. Notice that they went up. Okay. The less money I put in, the higher the return. It's the more money that I'm getting every year for the money that I put in. So let's go back to 125,000. Let's go to the results. So this first one, I'm only getting a 6% return on investment. That's not bad, but inflation is estimated somewhere between 6 and 8%. I've heard that number several times from several financial advisors. We're told that it's 4%, but when they do actual analysis over 100 years, it looks to be more close to 8%. So you really don't want to invest in something unless you're getting 8% or more. And The only time you want to invest if you're getting less than 8% is if you have so much cash and so few options that you don't really have a way to get a better return anywhere else. Real estate is not a liquid investment. I recommend looking for at least 8% return. Okay, so 6% was that top one, remember? Let's change this to 90,000. By reducing the amount of money that I'm putting into the deal and using the bank to finance the larger portion, I raised the return on my investment to 11% over a 15-year mortgage. Okay. The downside on this is that I'm cash flow negative, and this is why usually it doesn't pay to do a 15-year mortgage unless you are going in with a larger cash investment. So I really would recommend for this property a 30-year mortgage. You're only going to be breaking even for the first several years of the 30 years, but that's because of that 5% maintenance budget. Remember, we increased our maintenance budget for the first several years. If we want to see what our return will be after that, let's change this back to 2.5%. Okay, let's go back to results. Okay, now instead of $42 a year, I'm getting $408 a year. Okay, my return on my investment is now 5%, which is not much different. Okay, but still, that 2.5% makes a big difference. Also, we have to consider the fact that next year, the year after, and the year after that, we're going to be raising rents, which is also going to change this number. So this one, I'm not loving it. It's a little bit too close to comfort for me. This one here, I really love. All right, let's go back and change this universal data to the 5% margin. And again, these are conservative. On the 15-year mortgage, I get an 8% return. I get $9,000 every year of cash flow. And my down payment is 39% of the mortgage, right? This is very, very promising. I could even probably lower my cash investment on this one, increase my return, and keep my cash flow consistent. Okay, this one here, I'm right at the border, right? 9% return on investment, $121 a year, but I own the property in 15 years, free and clear, which means that all of that cash that's coming in now goes straight into my income. Okay, no mortgage expense. All I've got are taxes and maintenance, which is very small. So this one here, because it's a 15-year mortgage, is very attractive to me also. I don't mind breaking even for 15 years if it means that I'm going to have free and clear retirement income after that. All right, let's go back here to the universal data. Let's change this again. Let's drop this down to 85,000. Go back to the results. All right, we still are really positive here. Let's drop this down even further. Let's do 70,000. Let's go back to the results. Okay, now I'm getting a 13% return on a 15-year mortgage. My down payment's 28%. Right now, this is a property that I would probably put an offer in if I had $70,000 to spare. Okay, that money would be broken down as follows. Let's expand this and take a look at it. Unhide. All right, this is the one we're looking at. $9,250 I'm keeping just for any last minute repairs, because when you move it, when you take over, there will be things that are unacceptable. There will be leaks. There will be termite inspections that need to have sections of wood removed. There will be flooring that maybe needs to get done, and you're going to keep most of this money probably, but you want to have it just in case. Closing costs, $9,250. That's going to be what it is going to be. Cash for actual down payment is $51,500. So that's how the breakdown is for the $70,000 that we talked about. All right. I'm getting positive cash flow every single year and a really great return on my money. All right. So now I'm not going to take your time and go through the rest of these properties. You've seen how I do it. If I wanted to add a new property, all I would have to do is come in here. Let's just add one more and see how it compares. 606 Decatur Street. 229, 900. Number of units. And actually, you know what? We're going to make a change to, this is 2 units, to this sheet. Rent 1, these are actual rents. 1,800, that's nice. 1,800, true and true. Do we have taxes? Heating, cooling, total annual expense, annual net income, vacancy factor. I don't see taxes. So what do? 1% of the purchase price. We haven't looked at area score yet. As you can tell, I don't care much about area score, but we'll take a look at it before I end the video. Okay, so we're going to take this, and we're going to just copy it down 1. Okay, now we're going to go to the results. We're going to take this. We're going to just copy it down 1. Ah, no. Okay, 17% return on a 15-year, but it's cash flow negative. And again, this depends upon the cash investment, but look at that. That's how quickly we can add a new property. Let's switch gears for a moment. Let's add a new area score. All right. So property data. This is Lincoln Ave. All right, here is what I like to do for the area score. The area score is going to be, it's not going to affect the finances. It's more of a gauge of what the neighborhood is like and how you feel it will compare against others. I like to try to convert subjective things into objective things in a consistent and systematic way that's repeatable. By doing that, we get a consistency as one person does the numbers and another person. It creates a system that can work. All right, so the way that I'm going to score this, I'm going to go to Google Maps. Let's go to Google Maps. Let's go to Belmont Avenue. Okay, I'm going to grab the little guy and I'm going to drop him in front of the building. All right, so here are things that I'm looking for. I'm going to start with a score of 10, and I'm going to look for things that bother me, okay? Things that bother me are boards on windows, lots of parking on the street, homeless people, you find homeless people and vagrants. This looks like a kid walking home from school. This, all in all, this looks like a very nice street. I know the neighborhood's a little bit rough, but the lawns are mowed. I'm not seeing anything to subtract here. Okay. House for sale across the street. Okay. All right, so we're going to subtract 1 for this property here. All right, so this becomes a 9. This is next door. It also becomes a 9. These are because these are both on Belmont. 321 and 317. So let's go back here to our property. So these two are 317. These two are 321. They look like they're in good condition. Again, that's not bad. Let's take a look at Castlegate Lane. Let's back out here. Okay, I'm going to drop my little man here. What's interesting to me, so you see, the blue lines are where they have images. They don't have any images on the street, here or here. So we're going to have to approximate it. We're going to drop that guy there. And the reason why they don't have any images is because it's a gated community, so the car couldn't get back there. All right, cluttered cars. Okay, that I subtract points for. So that's going to subtract 1 point. Houses are in good condition. I don't see any boards. Let's see here. Let's take a look at the neighborhood. Coming in, vacant lot. I'm not going to subtract anything for a vacant lot. I do subtract if the street appears too narrow. This is a cul-de-sac. Little baseball park. All right, so this one's also going to be a 9. They're not all going to be 9s. I don't think, anyway. All right, let's go to Lincoln Avenue. Okay. I'm looking for broken windows. So here's the property. First, the property looks decent. Got 2 cute little dogs there. Keep in mind these pictures are not recent. This is from July. At the very bottom, you can see it says image capture July 2016. So this is 3 years old. If you live near the area, you can always drive by. But I don't expect huge changes in the area over 3 years as far as like the way people like to live. That's a little overgrown, but it's not horrible. Yards are maintained. Looking for boarded up houses, broken windows. Got a fire going on over here. I don't know if he's moving or not, but I'm actually kind of surprised that we didn't see hey, they're waving. Look at that. Happy family. Okay. You know what? So I didn't see anything to subtract for here. This one's going to get a 10. Now, for the record, I've been to this neighborhood. I would not generally classify this as a 10. What we're using, though, is a systematic way of comparing these properties based on things that we've seen. All right. Typically, you would find boarded up windows in this neighborhood. But again, the images don't show it. All right. Oh, hold on. All right. This has just gone from 10 to 9. 9. Do you see that window? And there's the board. All right, so you want to spend some time looking through these properties. You also want to look for if the street looks overcrowded, like is there cramped parking? These are things that you want to look for. All right, so let's go over here. Decatur Street. Now, Decatur Street's going to lose a little bit because it's a busy street, and hopefully we'll see that in the pictures. So let's put our guy down here. Whoop. All right, so it's one of these properties here that we're looking at. Not a big fan of that. Damage on the front doors. Okay, this is a little bit more crowded on the street until we get down here. I don't know if I want to subtract a point for that or not. Okay, we've only got one car on the road. I'm going to subtract 1 point for all these cars being together like that. I'm looking for boards. I'm looking for signs of bad lawn care. And by bad lawn care, I mean like true eyesores. This is deceptive. This entire house is plywood. I don't know if that's under construction or not. We got a whole stack of stuff here. That's under construction, so I'm not going to subtract a point for that. Oh, look at these are cute properties. School bus, 99-cent store. Got another vehicle on the road. There's another vehicle on the road right there. And that's what I was talking about. So it wasn't necessarily visible. This is a busy street. So we're going to subtract 1 point for it being a busy street. Oops, I did not want to go there. Okay. So there's 2 cars in a row that look kind of beat up. There's plywood. I don't know what they're doing with it. It's not over the windows yet. I don't see any brakes. UST. Confidence. Construction Inc. So, don't know what they're building, but they're building something. Alright, so we lost 2 points there going through. So this one's going to be an 8. The results. Area score. 9. No, I don't want this to be $1. This is going to be a score like that. Okay. So this, again, it doesn't affect the numbers. If I'm torn between 2 properties, I really don't know if I want to invest in one or the other. I'll look at the area score and I'll invest in the one that has the bit better area score. So ultimately, what I want to do is put in all 14 properties, and I want to find the 3 that are going to be the most profitable for me based on my available down payment, based on cash flows, and based on my own personal settings for how much I want to reserve for repairs, my annual maintenance budget. So like if we change that, oh, you know what I just noticed? I just made a mistake in the analysis. All right. I changed the wrong number earlier when I did the reserve for repairs. Let's delete that. We didn't use that number. So if I change the reserve for repairs, how does that change this first property? Let's get rid of this stuff again. Hide. So my down payment is still too low. Let's raise the down payment to $90,000. Results 32, 85,000. Results 30. That's good. All right. I am now cash flow positive on this first property if I use the 2.5% annual maintenance budget. Now, quiz. When are we using 2.5%? The answer is almost always. 2.5% is the average annual cost of repairs for a building when you're maintaining its current state. If you're happy with the way the building is today, 2.5% is the budget you should set. If you are not happy with the way the building is today and you wish that it was nicer, change it to 5%, change it to 3%, change it to 4%, change it to anything over 2.5%. You get to set the number. That's why this analysis is so personal, and somebody else can't do it for you. You have to make that decision. But that flexibility gives you the ability to see things a little differently. So in the long term, when I'm done spending my 5% per year to get the property to where I want, over 3, 4, 5 years, I'm going to have a positive cash flow on both the 30-year and the 15-year mortgage. And now I've got a 12% return on my investment. Okay. I did change the wrong number there, and that's my bad. But that makes a huge difference in the results. So right now, my favorite 2 properties based on this analysis are going to be this property here. Actually, my favorite 3. This one, this one, this one, and this one. Notice the cap rates. 11, 17, 12. Where did I say I like to be? About 9, 10, 11. So these 2, I expect to see some problems with the inspections, which are going to change the numbers just a little bit, but we've got room to play. We've got room to play. So anyway, this sheet is available for download at jared@watson.com. Same page that you're hopefully watching this video on. I've taken way too long. I've been recording for an hour and 25 minutes. Oh my gosh. Oh, thank you. Wife just came in to give me my cell phone. So, but anyway, I hope that this has been very helpful and useful, and I hope that you can use this information in order to pick properties that you will invest in. Now, where do you go from here? Once you've picked the properties you want to invest in, you call your real estate agent, in this case, Jared Clements at Watson, and you say, hey, I want to write an offer. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to write that offer subject to inspection, and we're going to delay the earnest money deposit until several days after the inspection is complete. So we're going to do the inspection, that we're going to make the seller allow us to inspect the property within 7 days, earnest money deposit within 3 days of that. What that allows us to do is to offer on more than one property without having to separate with our money. We're going to pick the property we like best, or if you have a lot of cash and you can actually invest on buy all three, you get to decide after the inspection. But as soon as you're done with that inspection, you have to communicate with the seller and say that you're going to move forward or not, and whether or not you're putting that earnest money deposit in. So you try to schedule your inspections all on the same day when you're doing this, so that way you're not cheating the seller from the time on the market. Okay, so again, I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to call me. My phone number is on the website. You can click the button in the header above, which says call now, and that will dial. If you're on a cell phone, it will actually dial the phone for you. It's pretty cool, right? Anyway, good luck.